Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Crash Course Studio. Welcome to the show. So, another reminder, if you haven't seen my previous spoiler episode, make sure you check that one out as well. And if you haven't checked out my, well, Kickstarter preview, make sure you check that out because, well, if you didn't see the beginning of this episode, I'm really excited about this. I've made my own card game, and yeah, there's going to be a Kickstarter on it, so make sure that you follow it so that as soon as it comes out, well, yeah, you can check that out. So with all that said, though, let's jump into the Bloomburrow Spoilers, and we're getting a ton today and a lot of really exciting ones. First up, we've got, I am terrible at names. Biza? Beza? I'm gonna go with Biza. Like, the island of Ibiza, I guess. I don't know. Biza, the Bounding Spring, a 4/5 elemental elk, which is a legendary creature, obviously a commander. Mythic level for cost, 2 white, 4 total mana and white. Enters the battlefield, create a treasure token if an opponent controls more lands than you. You gain 4 life if an opponent has more life than you. Create 2 1/1 blue fish creature tokens if an opponent controls more creatures than you. Draw a card if an opponent has more cards in hand than you. This is a staple on everything a mono white player could ever want onto a commander. Except that it doesn't like triple up token production or whatever, but you know, we already have one of those commanders that does that. What this does is it says, hey, all right, you're in mono white, right? We got you. We know that you're probably going to be behind in one of many facets of the game because you're playing mono white, which has been historically and still probably is the weakest color out of all the color combinations, and there are quite a few of them. So what you do is, hey, if you're down on lands, we give you some mana resources. We give you a treasure. If you're down on life, which, I guess that's the one thing that you should be ahead of your opponents if you're in mono white, most likely. But now let's say you're not. Cool. You've got 4 life to gain. Hey, you're down on creatures. Get some fish. Here's some fish. Have some fish. And if an opponent is being very mean and has more cards in hand than you, which they probably do, you're in mono white, you get to draw a card. Now, this is on an enter the battlefield effect, which means that it is easily used and abusable in mono white, because one thing you are very good at are cloud shift type effects, blinking effects essentially, and just blink this over and over and over again, utilize those resources. And here's the thing, like, you are, technically with the first one, right, that's going to be always true. Essentially, like, if you keep blinking this throughout the turn, that first one, if it happens once and opponent has more lands than you, getting a treasure does not equal a land, obviously, so therefore, you're still going to be behind on lands. But you are catching up on temporary mana advantage with that. Also, you gain 4 life and opponent has more life than you. So that means essentially, well, yeah, you will eventually get to the point where you have more life than opponents, though technically there are, like, free life draining effects out there, so you could like pay to keep lower than them if you really wanted to. Maybe there's some like life gain synergies, like, and like whenever you gain life kind of effects that you could like really abuse with that. Making the fish, yeah, that would eventually you'd catch up to an opponent that has more creatures than you, and then you would essentially yeah, have more than them and not get that. That being said, of course, there are a lot of free sacrifice outlets out there, including, well, I'm not gonna, I will spoil it at some point. We'll go to here in a second, though. The last one, though, drawing cards. Obviously, you will eventually catch up to an opponent. But again, keep in mind, this is all of your opponents. So, like, if one player's here, one player's there, one player's there with their different resources, you might hit all of these, which say a lot for 4 mana. And again, very easily blinkable. Yeah, that's a lot of value to be had. Now, is it the most powerful commander out there? No, but, like, are there, like, weird combos that you can do, like Eldrazi Displacer pretty easy with this? Yeah. All you need is Eldrazi Displacer and, like, what is it? Ashnod's Altar, and there you go. If an opponent has more creatures than you, and that's basically it on the ETB, you win. You don't win, but you basically win. You're going to get infinite colorless mana because of all the fishes and drawing cards, and you can cast your cards, and you can get treasures to help you out as well. Yeah, you're going to probably win if you've got infinite mana, and also if you like play the cards in your hand, you get to draw back more, and so on and so forth. So yeah, definitely a commander that could be combo driven, but yeah, just also could be just a interesting commander to give you a lot of value. Okay, I spent a lot of time on that one. That being said, this can also just be good like as an ETB and a lot of decks out there. Next up, Bravekin Duo, a 1/1 rabbit mouse that costs a single white mana, pay 1 tap, target creature gets minus +1/+1 until I've turned active on sorcery. Limited card. Next up, we've got Cash Grab, which is quite the clever name. You know, like cash like money, or cash like a cache of acorns or whatnot. Anyways, instant for 2 mana in green, mill 4 cards. You may put a permanent card from among the cards mill this way in your hand. You control a squirrel or return a squirrel card to your hand this way. Create a food token. Maybe Squirrel Tribal decks could utilize this. Maybe. I mean, or like self-mill might utilize it too. Anyways, next up, Cindering Cutthroat, a 3/2 Lizard Assassin, because that's a thing. Look at that outfit. For 3 mana in Rakdos, enters the battlefield, they counter on opponent lost life this turn. You can give it Menace. Limited card. Next up, Corpse Berry Cultivator, a 2/3 Squirrel Warlock, because that's the thing, for 3 mana in Golgari. Beginning of combat in your turn, you may forage, which I discussed on the last episode, but if you weren't there for that, you can exile 3 cards from your graveyard to sacrifice a food to do so. Whenever you forage, you get a counter on this, so I guess if forage becomes a pretty big thing, this could become a pretty big threat for a deck, but other than that, pretty specific. Limited. Next up, Dream Dew Entrancer. Okay, here we go. 3/4 Frog Wizard with Reach for 4 mana in Simic. When it enters the battlefield, tap up to 1 target creature and put 3 stun counters on it. If you control that creature, draw 2 cards. This, I think, can be an incredible card in a Blink deck. I mean, this card has a lot of application. Number 1, yeah, tapping down a creature for basically like 3+ turns is pretty crazy with stun counters. If you have proliferate effects, obviously you can like infinitely tap something down and like even just like, it's not even infinite, but it's just like, even if you just do this once on something, it's like out of the game basically, right? Like, okay, tap that down. You have to untap it 3 times to be able to actually untap it. And so with that, yeah, you're pretty much stuck without that thing for a while. And then a board wipe might happen by the time you could be able to untap that. So, or yeah, if you're about to untap it again, I'll just like blink this and do that. So yeah, being able to like shut down creatures, that's great. But also you can utilize it on your own creatures, of course. Again, if you control a creature, draw 2 cards. You can actually even just, it doesn't say another creature. It doesn't say tap up to 1 other creature, which I thought it would. It does not. You can have this target itself, which, I mean, if you need it as a 3/4 blocker, great. But like, you're probably just going to be blinking this a lot. So this is just a great like Mold Drifter, ETB, draw 2 cards / removal creature. That is really good. Yeah, it's got flexibility for, again, removal or card draw. And the downside to its card draw is not really that much of a downside. It's like, okay, I ETB'd, I tap this thing itself, and I'll blink it again at some point. Sure, to tap down something else, or to tap itself again and draw 3 more cards or 2 more cards. Yeah, it's quite good. Quite good. Next up, Fell. Okay. I mean, fell like as in like, oh no, I fell, but also you fell something as in you kill it, destroy it, whatever it is. Destroy a target creature, sorcery for 2 mana. They finally did it. They made murder cheaper. Murder as in the card. 3 mana murder. I think murder's instant speed though. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on that, but this is now sorcery speed, 2 mana for something that way back in the day was much more expensive than that. But yeah, basically like Doomblade, but for any creature, but sorcery speed. There you go. More of a limited card, most likely. Most of the time in Commander, you do want instant speed removal. Moving on. Head of the Homestead. I love this old school style art. It's just like those old like picture books. I can't place what kind of book it is. Like, you know, like the, oh, what's the rabbit one? Anyways, obviously. 3/2 Rabbit Citizen for 5 mana in Selesnya. Enters battlefield. Create 2 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens. 3 creatures for the price of 5 mana. Nah. Probably more of a limited card. Next up, Hop to It. Hilarious. Source for 3 mana, create 3 1/1 rabbits. Yeah, that's the kind of efficiency that we're looking for. I mean, for whatever reason, Wizards got on like a, okay, like at 2 mana, you get 2 creatures, but at 3 mana, you just get like 2 specific kinds of creatures. Like you get 2 mirrors. People want mirrors, right? So we'll make 2 mirrors. Yeah. No, with this, it's like, okay, no, yeah, you get 3 creatures. So 3 mana for 3 creatures. If you got a go wide strategy, yeah, it's a very good type of card for those kind of strategies. Risk-rat style decks as well. Yeah, can consider this too. Next up, Hunter's Talent. It's a class. Yeah, classes are back. If you haven't been to my previous episode, I'm going to keep mentioning that. 2 mana in green. When it enters, target creature control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you control. We need, is there a name for this? Like, it's like fighting, but it's kind of like sucker punching because like you're not fighting. You're just hitting the other creature without your creature getting hit at all. So can we call it sucker punching? I mean, does it have a name? That would be too long. I'm going to call it sucker punching. Okay, so basically, you have one of your creatures sucker punch another creature, which is nice because your creature's not in danger at all. It's basically just a removal spell in green for 2 mana. You can level it up. Whenever you attack, target attacking creature gets ++0 gains trample up turn. That's a nice way to get damage through, especially if you have a commander maybe that you really want to get damage through with. If it has like a, hey, on combat damage, hit a player, you get this effect. Cool. Trample can really help with that. Or if you just have a Voltron command, you're like, okay, like I take something out with that first mode, and then the second level, I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll attack, I'll swing through, get damage in. Level 3, at the beginning of your end step, you control a creature power 4 or greater, draw a card. It's a good amount of mana to invest into this to get to there, but like, if you have the extra mana lying around, do so. And also, obviously, if you are pumping creatures, utilizing creatures with power, you're going to use this. This one has a decent amount of application. Again, it's like removal / potential card advantage / damage getting through. It's interesting. I love classes, so we'll see where this one sees play. Next up, Junk Blade Bruiser. Yeah. 4/5 Raccoon Berserker for 5 mana and Gruel. Something just seems very Gruel about raccoons and, like, yeah, just craziness. Trample. Whenever you expend 4, Junk Blade Bruiser gets +2/+1 time turn. Expending 4 means spend your 4th total mana on a turn casting a spell. So, like, if you cast a spell for 3 and then cast another spell for 1, that would count. If you pay for abilities, that does not count. That being said, yeah, this is definitely more limited. Next up, Kidnap. Cool. Aura for 4 mana in blue. Gift a card. Interesting. You promise an opponent a gifted cast spell. If you do, when it enters, they draw a card. Okay, so again, we saw like gift a fish. So you give someone a fish. It's tapped, I guess that one was. But yeah, now we're seeing gift a card. So having them draw a card, that's more than giving them a fish most of the time. That'd be more beneficial to that opponent. Enchant creature. Enters battlefield, tap enchant creature. If the gift wasn't promised with restart counters on it, you control enchanted creature. So this either like shut down a creature. I mean, like you're controlling it still, but like you're not gonna be able to use it for a while if you don't gift. But if you do gift, you just 4 mana, gain control of a creature. Just what's it? Control magic, is that the one essentially? But yes, the funny thing about this is, and with all these gifts, is that again you promise any opponent the gift. You don't have to give it to the opponent that you're stealing the thing from. In fact, you're probably benefited not to. You're gonna be like, okay, hey opponent over here, I want to steal that creature over there from that opponent. I'll give you a card. Don't attack me next turn with your creatures. Okay, cool. You can usually make some kind of a deal with those kind of things by being like, okay, I'm giving you a card to draw. Sure, let's make a deal. You can get something small, something big. And yeah, also you get to steal another creature and then really upset that player because they got nothing and you sold their creature. Moving on. That one, probably like an Aura's deck could utilize it. Or yeah, if you have other control magic type effects, definitely utilize that too. Or maybe even like, I was going to say group hug, but it's not really group huggy because you're like stealing things, but you're also like gifting things. Who knows? Mind Drill Assailant. A 2/5 red warlock for 4 mana in Dimir Threshold. I love that they're bringing Threshold back. Oh my goodness, my childhood. That is one of the main mechanics for my childhood back in Odyssey. I think it was Odyssey. Odyssey Onslaught area. Anyways, as long as 7 more cards in your graveyard, +3/+0, you can pay to surveil 1. Keep in mind, you do not have to tap this, so that is a repeatable surveil effect, though it is quite expensive. But if you have like a Training Grounds in play or whatever that one is, then yeah, it costs a lot less. It's pretty specific. Yeah, it's probably too much. So yeah, I think most decks are going to consider, even like self-mill decks, it's probably a bit too much. Next up, Moonrise Cleric. Some of the art's just really cool from this set. 2/3 Bat Cleric with flying for 3 mana Orzhov. Whenever it attacks, you gain 1 life. Limited card. Next up, Pawn Prophet. 1/1 Frog Advisor for 2 mana in Simic. I was going to say blue. Simic. Enters, draw a card. Interesting. So this one's basically like Elvish Visionary, but not an elf. Frog Advisor. But also, yeah, I mean, it's technically harder to cast because like Elvish Advisor is 1 in a generic, or a green in a generic. But still, like, I mean, any kind of like ETB deck could consider it as well. If you're considering Elvish, is it Elvish Advisor? Whatever that one Elvish one is. Elvish Mystic. Whichever the one elf is that enters battlefield, draws your card. Whatever that one is. Elvish Visionary. I think I said it right the first time. Elvish Visionary. If you already have that in the deck, it's not an elf tribal deck, then yeah, probably consider this one as well. Next up, or a frog deck or an advisor deck. Repel Calamity, instant. I love the art on this one. Instant for 2 mana in white. Destroy target creature power or toughness 4 or greater. That's a limited card. There's a lot better removal spells in Commander, like, you know, one that costs 1 generic mana less and it exiles a creature. Sure, you give the opponent a land or life or whatever, but who cares? Next up, Runaway Together. This is a reprint. Cool. Anyways, cool art. Next up, Ruthless Negotiation. Sorcery for a single black mana. Target opponent exiles a card from their hand. So it's cast from a graveyard, draw a card. You can flash it back as well. More of a limited card. I mean, it's a mean card, but it's like to just one opponent. They get to choose the card that they're getting rid of. It has to get rid of permanently, though. I guess if you have a deck that really cares about casting things out of graveyards, then sure, but if not, no, limited. Next up, Seed Pod Squire, 3/3 Bird Scout with flying for 4 mana in Azorius. Whenever it attacks our creature control without flying, it's +1 until end turn. It's pretty specific because most decks that like are like all about flyers are like, okay, like I have all flyers. Don't really care about pumping other things. Yeah, I mean, limited. Next up, Shoreline Looter. You better loot. You better loot. Okay? Your name says looter. You better loot. Merfolk Looter. Set the precedent that you gotta loot. 1/1 Rat Rogue for 2 mana in blue. Can't be blocked. Love unblockable creatures. Okay, so this is actually unblockable, which is lovely. Lots of decks out there love low the ground unblockable creatures. I mean, any kind of like, I was gonna say Azuri, but I guess Azuri could use it. Anyways, whenever it deals combat to a player, draw a card, then discard a card unless 7 or more cards in your graveyard. Okay, so there you go. There is looting, but also like, so it starts off as card selection again with that looting effect essentially. When you do hit, which you are going to hit because you can get through always. If you have double strike, congratulations, twice. But yes, basically once you're filling up your graveyard with this or other things as well, you hit 7, then all of a sudden that turns into card advantage. Just straight up just drawing cards. Lovely. So yeah, that's quite nice. I mean, when it comes to decks that are going to use this, most likely decks that really care about, again, like the Flying Men type strategy, like unblockable creatures, those can utilize something like this. And then also like ones that care about looting as well too, because again, it is a repeatable looting effect that is not guaranteed to hit, but basically guaranteed to hit. Moving on. That then turns into card advantage. Shrike Force. This is a really cool art. I love the art in this set. 1/3 Bird Knight. Oh, I just thought of something. Human Tribal is getting absolutely no support in this set. Ha! Okay, anyways. Bird Knight for 3 mana in white. Flying double strike vigilance. Someone's going to point out a card that's like, that could be used in Human Tribal. And I'm like, sure, okay, fine. But they're all animals in this set. Anyways, flying double strike vigilance. I mean, like keyword soup decks could definitely utilize this. Ones that are like, hey, like the Odric type decks are like, if you have these keywords, everything has these keywords, great. Or like things in the graveyard, pull them out, give keywords, whatever it is. Those kind of decks can use it. I guess like a evasion deck, like that has a bunch of anthems, could utilize it too. It's pretty specific, like bird deck, night deck maybe. But yeah, being able to get through, stay back for blocks, and hit twice with the double strike, that's pretty sweet. Anyways, next up. Stormcatch Mentor, a 1/1 Otter Wizard with haste and prowess that costs 2 mana and is it. Instant or spells you cast cost one to cast. Okay. So, yeah. Don't know if we needed more of these at the exact same amount, but, yeah. Well, what's Gobble Electromancer? Oh my, we're starting to get to the point where, like, cards that didn't come out all that long ago. I mean, they came out a decently long time ago, but not too long ago, really, like, in the vast history of Magic, are now just getting, like, supplanted with just better cards. And again, like, if you have Gobble Electromancer in your deck, you're probably not taking out, but you're probably just adding this one alongside of it, because now all of a sudden you got a second one that also, like, if you're spell slinging, can just hit pretty hard and swing hastily right away, which is nice. But yeah, the most important thing, obviously, with this one, the Electromancer, is reduction. Reducing the cost in sorcery spells can be amazing, can be broken, can be brutal. Absolutely crazy that we were getting this. Oh my goodness. I mean, if I had to guess, this might be one of the most played cards from the set, literally just because Goblin Electromancer does see a good amount of play as well. Next up, Tempest Angler. Some cool art. 3/2 Otter Wizard for 3 mana, and is it? Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get a counter on it. Otter Tribal, Wizard Tribal, most likely a limited card. Next up, Tender Wild Guide. A 2/2 Possum Druid. Again, we get possums, but we can't get, like, pigs, you know? I'm not saying that they're related. They're not at all, but, like, we get very specific into certain kinds of creatures, right? And then you're like, no, all pigs have to be boars. Why? We had a Zodiac pig back in the day. Anyways, outside of pigs, for 1 and a green, Offspring too. So again, I don't know if I've mentioned this on this episode yet, but the previous episode I did, Offspring basically means you pay an extra 2. It's basically kicker. If you do, you create a token copy of this card, an exact token copy of it, except it's a 1/1. That's the only difference in the fact that it is a token. It literally has the exact same mana value, the exact same abilities, etc. Tap at 1 mana of any color, tap at a counter on this creature. Interesting. So, Mana Dork that is in line with a lot of other Mana Dorks these days at 2 mana, tapping for 1 mana of any color. We've got a lot of other, like, you know, choose your flavor kind of Mana Dorks like that, where it's like, okay, cost 2, taps for 1 mana of any color. What else does it do? Does something else typically these days. I mean, Bop, Birds of Paradise is a whole different thing, you know, at 1 mana, but that's, you know, 0/1, and it's very good, yes, and very expensive. That being said, this is like, hey, okay, early on, yeah, 2 mana, cool. Turn 2, ramp, get this out and play, cool. It can also grow itself, which is nice. So it also works really well in +1 counter synergy decks too. That being said, yeah, I mean, if you just have 4 mana, like on a later turn, you're like, okay, cool, I'll ramp basically twice. I'll get 2 of these out. Now I can tap for 2 more next turn, essentially, with that, or get tap and get counters on these as well. Yeah, I mean, a good mana dork, a very solid mana dork. Obviously, with Offspring too, make sure you're considering like populate type decks too. Quite fun. Next up, Thorn Vault Forager, a 2/2 Squirrel Ranger for 2 mana. Yet another mana dork. Here we go. Tap for a green. There you go. So again, not one mana any color, but tap forage, add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Ooh, that's good. Okay, so foraging, I don't think I've mentioned this on this episode yet, is a new thing as well. You can either exile 3 cards from your graveyard or sacrifice a food. So if you've got food deck, congratulations, you've got a good ramp source in that deck if you're okay with this mana dork. Because my goodness, again, 2 tapping for 2, you usually don't see that, like ever. Pay 3 and a green, tap search life for a squirrel card revealed between the shuffle. I did not even get to that part. Okay. Wow. Okay. I mean, so yeah, if you have a Squirrel Tribal deck, this is very, very good because this is obviously a great low-to-the-ground mana dork that can either tap for 1 or tap for 2 in the right situation. It doesn't even take that much to really tap for 2, obviously. I mean, exiling cards from your graveyard is more likely, but yeah, sure, you might have some food lying around. That being said, if you have food lying around, you should probably throw it away because it might get moldy. Just kidding. Anyways, or eat it. Anyways, bad joke. All right, but yeah, being able to just tutor out Squirrel cards, that's quite nice. Again, for that kind of a deck, but also like a Lord's Tribal deck out there, a Changeling Tribal deck might want to consider this too because it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I go tutor for Mere Entity, which can change all my creatures into any creature type then too because that's a Changeling, which is every creature type including Squirrel, and then I can do some crazy things with that. So yeah, definitely consider that as well. Next up, Thunder Trap Trainer, a 1/2 Otter Wizard for 2 mana in blue. What is going on in the background there? What are those fish? Those like kites? I don't know. Anyways, Offspring for 4, so that's quite a bit for the Offspring. Enters the battlefield like top 4 cards of your library. Oh, we already talked about this in the last episode, it's just different art. Okay, anyways, if you want to hear me talk about that one, go to the last episode. Anyways, next up, Valley Rotcaller, a 1/3 Squirrel Warlock with Menace for 2 mana in blue. When it attacks, each opponent loses X life, and you gain X life for X number of other squirrels, bats, lizards, and rats you control. Interesting. Okay, so this is on attack. It is each opponent. I always like kind of compare these to like Gary, basically when it comes to like, does something, everyone else loses X life based on this. Gary's obviously easier since Gary, Great Rich Masfidel, is based off of ETB, and it's also based off of Devotion, which is easier to build around, obviously. That being, not easier, obviously, but just like it's more applicable to most decks out there that are utilizing it, like in Mono Black. This one, yeah, you need to basically be in like a tribal of either squirrels, bats, lizards, rats, or all of the above. Or you need to be in Changeling Tribal as well for this to really benefit you. It is on attack, so you are sending this into danger, though it does have menace, so it can usually, not usually, it has a better chance of getting through, I should say. That being said, if you're hitting hard enough with this, when it comes to the life loss, your opponents are going to be heavily incentivized to double block and take it out. Interesting card, though. Yeah, interesting card. Next up, Veteran Guard Mouse. A 3/4 Mouse Soldier that costs 4 mana in Boros. Valiant. Whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, it gets +1/+0. Gains first strike until 12 turns. Scry 1. Valiant, in my opinion, is just less fun heroic because it's limited. Wizards. Yeah, more of a limited card for this, though. Wandertail Mentor, a 2/2 Raccoon Bard for 2 mana in Gruul. Whenever you expend 4, which means, again, spending 4 mana to cast a spells or whatever on a turn. 4th mana spent to cast spells. Put a +1 counter on it, and it taps for either green or red. Yeah. I mean, it's a decent mana dork. It can grow throughout the game, obviously, because you're going to be spending mana to cast spells. There's probably other better mana dorks out there. I mean, it also is a mana dork that, like, it takes, again, you have to have fixed mana to actually get it out. So it's just kind of a bummer, like, if you just, like, happen to have 2 mana, and you're like, okay, I can ramp. Oh, no, I can't ramp because I only have 2 green. So there's better mana dorks out there, but like if you're really about like counter synergies, this could definitely see play. Anyways, moving on. Wear Down, sorcery for 2 mana in green. Gift a card. So again, you make an opponent draw a card. Which is interesting that it's a forced draw though. It's not like they can't choose not to draw that card. So you could have a really weird like combo deck where you're just forcing opponents to draw out, but that's way too specific of a thing. Anyways, destroy target artifact or enchantment if the gift was promised. Instead, destroy 2 artifacts and or enchantments. So typically you don't see like, you know, 2 mana to destroy 2 things. It does cost you a card to do so. Like not cost you a card, it gives an opponent an extra card. That being said, again, the things that you're destroying don't have to be the same opponent that you're giving the gift to. So again, you can make a deal with that opponent by being like, hey, I'll give you a card. Don't worry about what I'm doing. That being said, it is sorcery speed. So even though it is like a 2 for 2, at sorcery speed, it probably won't see playing Commander because, yeah, I mean, unless you have, like, again, like, a group hug deck might utilize this because, like, I gave you a card. The person's like, you destroyed 2 of my things! But, yeah, instant speed usually is what you want for removal. Next up, this is the commander I'm going to be talking about this episode with the quick take. Clement, the Worrywart. What a lovely name. 3/3 Frog Druid with Vigilance for 3 mana in Simic. Whenever it or another creature you control enters, again, not enters the battlefield, we've changed that apparently now to just enters, which makes it a bit simpler. But now I'm making it longer by talking about it. Return up to 1 target creature you control with lesser mana value to its owner's hand. And it says frogs you control have tap, add green or blue, spend 1 mana to cast a creature spell. Okay, so being able to bounce creatures back to your hand is actually a pretty powerful thing for the right strategy out there because, well, lots of creatures have a lot of great ETBs that you can use and abuse, or other effects out there that care about when things enter the battlefield. So being able to just be like, okay, I play this, I bring back something slightly smaller. I play that thing, I bring back slightly smaller than that. I bring this. You can like really use and abuse ETBs quite easy with that and leave the battlefield triggers too. Is also very specific on what it's giving. I mean, what it's giving the ability to tap for mana. Again, just frogs. That being said, obviously changelings are a thing too. There are a couple frogs out there you might want to utilize, I guess, too. But yeah, it only can use that mana to cast creature spells. But again, with this kind of a deck, you're probably utilizing mostly creature spells because you want a bunch of creatures with a lot of ETBs. So it's actually, it's a very interesting commander. You can do some pretty exciting and kind of weird things with it, too. So again, we're going to be jumping into the budget buys, cards within my budget. Price you picks cards that are outside of my budget, but might be within yours. Let's jump into them. Okay, so when it comes to the budget buys, again, cards that are less than $1, even within my budget. First up, Xenograph, an enchantment for 5 mana in blue, enters the battlefield as a creature type. Frog. Each creature you control is the chosen type and its other type. So, being able to make all your creatures frogs obviously can be very beneficial. I mean, obviously with this commander, you could just go like all frog tribal, I guess, but you probably won't do that, most likely. You're probably going to build around that first part. Regardless, being able to turn all your creatures into frogs means that now they are all mana dorks, limited mana dorks, but they can still tap to add mana for your creature spells, so that can be absolutely huge. Mass Vandal, also obviously a changeling, which is technically a frog, can help you out as well. It's every creature type, changeling. 1/3 enters the battlefield. You may exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, exile target artifact or enchantment opponent controls. Obviously, it is dependent on you having a graveyard, but you probably will have one of those. And by utilizing this, you can actually, yeah, well, get rid of your opponent's things again and again and again. With this being lower, to the ground, obviously, many of your creatures coming to play can bounce this back to your hand. Also, another great low to the ground thing is Cloud of Fairies, a 1/1 flyer that can kind of just be like like a nothing? Not a nothing, but enters the battlefield, untap 2 lands. So basically, you tap those 2 lands to, pay the mana to cast a spell, you get that mana back. And maybe you have like bounce lands that have, they can tap for 2 or more, or you got other lands, like they can tap for 2 or more, or you got like, the doubling effects that can make you tap for even more than that, so you can actually gain mana on this. But also, you might have some other effects out there like, hey, when a creature comes into play, you get this. So it's kind of like a free benefit for you. Next up, Springmoon Druid. EDB, sacrifice 1 land, get 2 basics into play tapped. Can be great if you have any landfall synergies, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, also a great ramp. Great way to ramp with the creatures. And again, with being able to play this, get something else back to your hand, or play something else, get this back to your hand, you can really go far with this stack. Next up, Muldrifter. First card I thought about when I thought about this commander. Enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. You can evoke it as well. So again, when you evoke it, it still has that mana value of 5. So you can still get something else back to your hand that costs 4 or less, which is great. And again, ETB, draw 2. What's not to love about that? Even better, Lord of Change. ETB, draw 3. Yay! So yeah, basically you have the ability to just utilize these big creatures too to like get a lot of value, and then also get a lot of value back in your hand by bouncing something else back that can be quite big too. Tatyova, if you do want to lean into, like, again, a lot of creatures that give you a lot of lands, or I mean, you're in green anyways, you've got a lot of ways to ramp with lands. It's already going to be a good card for you. Land enters battlefield to control you, game life, draw a card. But again, if you can really use and abuse like those Springblow Druid type creatures, you get a lot of value out of this one. Great Oak Guardian. Enters battlefield, creatures target player controls get +2/+2 until end of turn, untap them. That can be very, very, very good. I mean, also having flash, you can like bounce something else back to your hand at flash speed, which is lovely. Instant speed, I should say. But being able to untap your creatures, again, if you're all frogs or whatnot, they can all tap for mana. That can be absolutely huge for you. Solar Harvest, speaking of huge, 6/6 trample, that's nice. But also more importantly, whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield to control, you may draw a card. You're going to have a lot of non-token creatures enter the battlefield again and again and again and again. This is a lot of card advantage for you with this. But now on to the pricier picks, and first up, Arcane Adaptation. Yeah, basically Xenograph, but better. Enters battle, features a creature type. It's enchanted for just 3 mana. Creature control of the chosen type and other types. Same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that are on the battlefield. Basically better Xenograph. So yeah, again, for all those reasons, making everything into a frog can be very beneficial to you. Maskwood Nexus, same thing basically. All your things are all frogs, and all other creature types too. I mean, not the same thing. It's just, for this deck, it's probably the same thing. Everything is a frog and every other creature type. So yeah, all your creatures can tap for mana, which is lovely, but also can pay 3 and tap to make a 2/2 changeling, which also can tap for mana for creature spells. Next up, Intruder Alarm. Brokenly good. Enchant for 3 mana. Can't believe it's only $2.41 right now. My goodness. Creatures don't untap their controllers untap steps. That's not really all that important. What is important is, whenever a creature enters the battlefield, untap all creatures. So, yeah, there's probably some loops that you could go through with this. But yeah, being able to just tap your creatures for mana, play a creature, bounce creature back to your hand, untap all your creatures, tap again, do all these things again and again and again. Lots of crazy value to be had. Next up, Concordant Crossroads. There's only so many ways to give your creatures haste in, Simic, basically any colors that aren't red. This is one way to do it. A single green mana, basically. Enchant World, enchantment. All creatures have haste. That's basically what this is. It's a very good card. Keep in mind, it does give your opponent's creatures haste, though. One that doesn't, though, is Lightning Greaves. Equip creature has haste and shroud, equip 0. So basically, again, play a frog, play a changeling. I'll play another creature that's also a changeling, thanks to Maskwood Nexus. Attach this to it. Tap it for mana. Play another creature. Attach this to it. Tap that for mana. You can get a lot of value out of creatures much quicker with this. Woodland Bellower, speaking of value, ETB, search the library for a non-legendary green creature card, converted mana cost 3 or less, but in the battlefield, then check your library. A great toolbox type card, but again, one that gives you 2 ETB triggers from, again, this Harvester of Souls, whatever the one is. And then, Soul of Harvest, not Harvester of Souls. And then also, of course, your commander as well, so keep that in mind. Being able to, bounce 2 things back to your hand, that can be absolutely huge. Retreat to Coral Helm, also a very good card. Again, you already have a lot of ways to ramp, including maybe Springmoon Druid, those types of cards that get you lands. Tap or untap target creature when a land is battlefield for your control, or you can scry, but again, a way to get mana back from those frogs or whatever you're utilizing. Then also we've got Hydroid Crassus. When it comes to mana value, some things are a bit more flexible like this. X mana value means that if you want to bounce a certain thing back to your hand, you can put a certain amount into that X, so it's on the stack at 6 or 7 or whatever it is. Bounce whatever you need back. Also, it's a great ETB too. It's not an ETB actually. Cast this spell, gain half X life, and draw half X cards, round down each time. 0/0 flying trample, enters with X counters on it. There's the ETB. That being said, bouncing this back to your hand can be quite simple and easy because, again, on the field, it only costs 2. So bounce it back to your hand, replay it for another, a lot more life, a lot more cards, all that stuff as well. Null Drifter, yeah, basically another Mull Drifter, but now it's 7. So again, if you evoke this out, it's in just 3 mana to evoke it, but it costs 7 when it hits. So all of a sudden you can bounce something back to your hand even bigger, cast it, draw 2 cards. That can be quite nice as well, flying in either one. Thought Monitor, another thing that does cost a good amount. But if you have a decent amount of artifacts in the deck as well, that can reduce this cost down because it has affinity. You can pay as little as just a single mana for this, again, for a 7 mana creature. 2/2, ETB, draw 2 cards. A lot of value to be had there. But now as this episode is coming to a close, again, a reminder, if you have not seen that Kickstarter link, make sure you check that one out, please. I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited about 7 Secret Supervillains. I cannot wait to unveil it. But yeah, make sure that you are following it so that you see when it's coming. And also, of course, I'm really excited to talk about even more spoilers, even more quick takes. I mean, there's a ton of cards, just a deluge of cards coming out right now. That being said, there are more days of spoiler season other than just this one. At least I believe that there's more than one. I don't think they changed it up so there's just 1 day of spoiler season. Regardless, make sure you're staying tuned to this channel for more exciting quick takes and spoilers. If you're excited about this brand new Commander Clement, make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.